Good evening. My name is Brian Manallo, and I am presenting on the budget analysis and expenses of the University of Hartsville compared to Division II private schools without football. To begin, the University of Hartsville's grant and aid is over $4 million, which is 2 times the amount of the median for Division II at $2,042,400. The University of Hartsville's grant in aid accounts for 60% of its total expenses. Furthermore, the calculated salaries for all men's sports programs is $939,000, which is 3 times the amount of the Division II median at $336,900. The calculated salaries for all women's sports programs is $996,000, which is 3 times the amount of the Division II median at $370,400. The analysis of sport offerings at the University of Hartsville would suggest certain programs will be cut in order to lighten the overall expenses. Median expenses for Division II sports at private schools without football were used to help determine the total fixed costs for each program. After review, my first recommendation would be cutting both men and women's soccer teams. After a review of both sports teams, soccer teams specifically, the total expenses include scholarships, academic aid, coaches' salaries, and spending per athlete, would cut $1,050,410 from the budget. Both soccer teams find themselves over the available roster spots after a break-even analysis, which would increase program expenses. After recommendation, another recommendation would be to cut the men and women's golf team as well as the men and women's tennis teams. All teams either reach the maximum or go over the available roster spots after performing a break-even analysis as well. The total expenses that would be cut after disbanding all 4 of these teams would be $941,350. This would bring the total expenses cut to almost $2 million at $1,991,760. This would bring down the overall total expenses to $5,255,580. If these teams were to be cut, total revenues would jump total expenses with a difference of $413,920. And so here I actually have a table of sports offerings, scholarships, the median expenses, thanks to folks, of Division II schools, private schools without football, and then after a break-even equation for each program, the minimum number of athletes. As you can see highlighted, I have the golf, tennis, and soccer teams, which I would cut in order to bring those total expenses down. And so to further discuss the strategic plan for the University of Hartsville, we'll go for the first year and then jump to 5 years. So for the first year, it would include reallocating funding so that teams are at tiers of their funding. Next would be to bridge the gap between campus and Tiger Athletics so that there is greater communication between the two. One of my suggestions would actually be a survey for all students and student athletes and faculty to take to kind of get a feeling of their thoughts on the athletic programs, their progress, and how they influence the entire campus, and how they can possibly bring in more money. And then finally, for this first year would be, as we discussed, recommending cutting programs such as the soccer teams, tennis, and golf teams. Further analysis would be needed to discuss if we would add more teams. So to the 5-year plan, this would include generating 5 sold-out basketball games per season, having 50% of teams break even covering their expenses, and after my calculations, we are already completed 38% of that, which is pretty good, but still more work to be done. Next would be to reduce athletic department reliance on direct institutional support by 15%, reduce coaches and administrative expenses by 10% over the next 3 years, and then finally increase fundraising by 25%. All of these goals, I feel, can be accomplished through further analysis and forecasting for the University of Hartsville. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation.